I realize I don't quite know how to hit the post on that one. I hadn't practiced it, but this is Protonic Reversal. Welcome to it. This is the 25th anniversary of the absolutely wonderful, amazing, beautiful, influential, seminal record, Firewater. And this is Nerves. And I'm sitting here with Mr. Tim Midyett, many time guest of the show, and who has agreed to humor me and to go through these in forensic detail, this excellent record, and tell us a little more about it. Hi, Tim. Thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for having me, man.
So first of all, 25 goddamn years, man. That's a stretch.
Yeah, that's half a lifetime ago for me. Almost half a lifetime. So it's impressive, I guess. If we've lived this long and the record's still around, people are still sort of talking about it.
Well, indeed, and it's something that I think that Firewater's a record that people seem to glom onto, and new kids kind of find it every year, kind of that kind of situation, which is great. I mean, you kind of, I suppose, in the back of your mind, you kind of hope that for any record. But
yeah,
it's actually the second record I came into. I came in with a developer, and went backwards to Firewater, and I was like, oh, these are some. Wow, this is like the rock record. Okay, this is cool. And kind of went backwards and then went forwards with it. But it took me a long time to realize it was a concept record basically about drinking, or at least the songs were largely about the drink.
Yeah, it's a sort of a metaphor, I think, about being captive to something, trying to feel something, trying to jolt yourself out of reality, to some degree. So that was sort of the vehicle for describing that thing that people try to do, through whatever means.
Right. And Firewater, I mean, gosh, what a freaking amazing term for that, right? I mean, that's like Firewater. That's perfect. If it had not been already defined, you would have to define it.
Yeah.
Did you always know that the album cover was going to be what it was, or did it just present itself to you?
No, we didn't have a concept or anything for the record. We just made it. And then we realized that somehow we'd bounced off each other and written all these songs about being dissolute. And I gave a tape of it to my buddy Hiroshi, who I had just met. He brought some paintings into the record store where I worked and showed him to the guy I worked for. And because he was friends with him, this guy Bob Jeniker, who was my buddy, who ran Park Avenue Records in Seattle. But anyway, I really liked the art, and I asked him if he ever thought about doing album covers. He's like, "Oh, sure, if you want," and I gave him a tape. We went to his studio and he showed us some ideas, and they were cool or whatever. But then there was a sketch in blue pencil of the album cover, and which is right here. And and I was like, "What the hell is this?" And he's like, "Oh, that's just an idea I had." And I was like, "No, this is it, man. You gotta you gotta paint that." And he's like, "Really?" And I was like, "Yeah." So that was it.
Well, it catches the attention because it's the kind of thing where, especially even when I found it was sort of like for lack of a better term, like the CD era, but especially with the vinyl, you're like, "Whoa, what is this?"
Yeah, and it's like, what's happening to this guy? I don't know.
Yeah.
Is he being tortured? He looks pretty happy.
He looks pretty stoked about it. Exactly.
And there's nothing coming out of one of my favorite thing is many. There's nothing coming out of the bottle because it's empty. He's taught this guy off. Like, this wine bong is like basically gone, and it's down here in his little tummy. Yeah. And I've got these chucks under the thing. There's just so many things about it that are perfect. And then and then I always imagined that these were supposed to be us. I don't know. That's either Andy or me, and that's either Andy or me, and that would be Michael.
Of course, you're talking for the folks just listening on the audio. You're pointing to the back cover where there's the apparatus is. I'll just call it an apparatus.
There's that. I think that must
the groin
be Andy.
Apparatus.
This must be Andy because of that. And
which would make the prone dude Michael.
Well, Andy used to be a donator at a bank, if you know what I mean. That's how he made money. There are probably a lot of little Andys running around, just FYI. But so I never thought about that, and I don't think Hiroshi knew that, but still. And then I don't know what this is, some kind of injection. But anyway, it's a really creepy album cover, and I friggin' love it. A friend of mine has the painting, and I wish I'd had enough money to buy the painting at the time. And then Hiroshi did these two, which are also perfect, you know.
Yeah, there's the it almost looks like a bubble wand kind of acid giver spoon medicine
Yeah,
situation, and then there's
yeah,
a hand in a mouth.
yeah, exactly. So I don't know. It was just when I saw that, I was like, oh, this guy's in tune, you know. He understands what we're doing. And that was a good feeling. It wasn't just going to be a cool picture on the cover. It was actually like super evocative of the record.
So
And that helps a
right,
lot when you can do that with an album. If you have a crappy cover, you know, it can really destroy the record. For me, it does, you know.
yeah,
If a record I like gets reissued and it has a crappy cover, and I look at it and I'm like, that doesn't look like
like
the second Go Betweens album or whatever.
yeah, and it's also interesting to me that it feels like it's a like the album art being as I don't know, audacious may not be the right word, but the album art being as eye catching as it is, it's also interesting because it's this is the first one without Joel
Yeah.
too, so it's sort of like a
Hmm.
re-envisioning of the band, kind of a progression for the band,
Yeah.
which I didn't realize at the time because I was just some dumb kid, I didn't know who the hell you were, and just was like, oh, it's a cool record cover. But I mean, that obviously factored into the songwriting, and we've talked about that
Yeah.
previously. Did it feel weird like doing a record without Joel? Were you excited? Like, where were you guys
No.
at as a headspace?
You know, there's no way for me to really say this without sounding like it's a diss on Joel, but it's not, because Joel's one of the best musicians I've ever met in my life, and I love his music.
Yeah,
He's one of my favorite guitar players of all time, and great singer, um, great writer. But you know, when he left the band, it was surprisingly smooth. I mean, we just started practicing, and you know, the thing is when you have um, a bunch of people who are talented, and you take one of them out of the mix, you still have a bunch of people who are talented. There's just one fewer, you know. It's not like it went from two to
right.
one. And Andy is such a monster guitar player. He was kind of off the leash at that point, and he didn't have to try to integrate what he was doing with Joel, so he just like blew up. And the main thing I would say about the record is it's a guitar record, and the guitar playing on it. The guitar playing on the records before that was great too, but it was different. It was more interwoven, and this was just like, you know,
It
in your
hits way
face.
different. Yeah, yeah, and that's so. I don't need an excuse to listen to the record, but of course I listened to it, a couple times, just thinking about it in terms of what we're going to be doing here. And
Right.
that was the first thing I thought of, was like, God damn, this is like a ripping guitar record. Like it's just
Yeah,
like it's almost like you feel like Andy got let off the leash to a certain
he did.
degree.
Yeah, it's out. It's outstanding. I mean, the yeah, no one. I mean, nobody plays better lead guitar than he does, and that was sort of his. Even though he played tons of guitar on the other records, this was kind of, to me, his like almost like coming out to the world as like, hey, you know, this is my bag. And it was very true live too. Like he would just destroy those songs live, you know, most of the time. So yeah.
Well, and that's something that I kind of want to, when we're going through the songs individually, which we were going to do for folks that tune in exclusively just for
Hmm.
that. But I figure we get a little background as well. One of the things I kind of want to think about is in terms of the memories behind each of the song. Maybe if there's like lyrical things,
Sure.
songwriting parts, et cetera, but also where you were at the times. Something I'd also like to bring up, because this is interesting to me, even though I saw you guys a few times,
Hmm.
what songs work live and what songs don't, like that kind
Yeah,
of
sure.
thing. And just kind of we got time,
Yeah.
but that's kind of where I'm looking to get at with details, just because, again, as a record that touched a lot of people and is something that people come back to all the time, myself included. I think that's kind of interesting. I think that gets kind of lost when you're talking about the overall picture, especially for an artist such as yourself that has so many records and
Hmm.
so much awesome stuff to talk about. I, as per normal, I can't remember a single thing we've talked about any of the times you've ever been on. But if you don't mind going into that level of detail, I think this is the time to do it.
No, great. Yeah.
So let's just start off with the fact that we started with Nerves, and that's a hell of an opening line. No more simple tunes, no more easy poon. Was there Was there ever any kind of like, oh, mm, that's the line? Okay. Or did it just make sense?
I think we thought it was great, you know. It's always funny. It was always funny to me because Andy was always, of the three of us, he was the one who was kind of itching the most. This isn't saying much because we didn't have much ambition commercially, but he was the one who was always sort of like semi like wanting to be able to be seduced by that. Like I think he saw the appeal of it, and you know later he played with Bush and stuff, and mostly because of that record he played with Bush on a tour because they needed a filling guitar player, and they loved that record. So, but anyway, despite that, he was always the one who just put the kibosh on that by putting shit like that into his songs,
Yeah, yeah.
or you know, the chorus is "God damn," and
Yeah.
when we were on Matador, looking back on it, you know, the single quote single off that record is a song about Firecracker, which is good, but it's not Nerves. Nerves is amazing,
Yeah.
and even at the time, I think we were like, well, Nerves is better, but whatever, Matador knows best, and they felt they couldn't do it because it had, you know, Poon and Goddamn in it, I guess. But
Which just goes to show you it was very different times, right? I mean,
well, very different times, and he just sort of trashed it,
yeah.
really, you know, just like he just trashed it, you know, by doing that. But the song's 10 times better than it would be if it had something boring in there for sure.
I mean, and just like out of the gate, there's that just, you know, like those chords were
Yeah,
just, it's like a statement of intent. And again, talking back to,
yeah,
you know, this being the transition record towards you guys being a trio, like it's sort of just out of the gate swinging
yeah.
like
It's great.
immediately.
It's called Nerves because we thought it was the closest we'd ever sound to Nirvana, so we called it Nerves, and
That's great.
um, and it just stuck. You know, it was a working title that stuck. But we recorded that and three other songs. Wet Firecracker. We did a version of Slow Hands. What was the other one that we Swings? We did, you know, some of the best songs on the record. We did in Missoula during a snowstorm over Thanksgiving. We flew Steve and his then girlfriend Heather, who's now his wife, who we didn't know at the time. Of course, she's a great friend of ours now. But
Yeah,
we
the
flew them
incredible
out to
Heather winner.
yeah, we flew them to Missoula and recorded at KUFM, which is a public radio station there, where we made our first demo tapes back in the '80s. These tapes, Advantage and Girl Harbor, we made them at this 1-inch 8-track machine there, and we knew that it was a good machine from talking to Steve, so we flew him out there and we recorded on that machine. And at the time we made that record, we made those 4 songs there. We had no record label. Libertine had come out, our second or third album, and
That's right. That was like a CZ, right? If I remember right.
no,
Or
Libertine was post CZ. It was on El Recordo. Some
oh, that's right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
guys who abdicated from CZ. Good for them. They put out Libertine, but you know we didn't have a label. Is my point. And so we were in very much in flux. Had no idea what we were going to do, and we're like, well, we have these songs. Let's pay to have Steve come out to Missoula, and we'll meet him there because Andy and I could go home for Thanksgiving, and we'll record them. And we recorded them, and those 4 songs ended up being kind of like the demo tape that got us signed to Matador. We didn't have a label, and Steve was like, we were bemoaning that, and he's like, well, what do you want to do? And I was like, I want to be on Touch and Go or Matador. And he's like, well,
Yeah.
send him tapes. So we did that, and then they're both like, okay, great, we'll put out your album. Like their 2 favorite labels in the country, and we're like, oh,
Right,
if
right.
I knew it was that easy, I would have done that like 5 years ago.
Right, exactly.
But we weren't good enough probably back then, or you know whatever. But Matador gave us a lot of money, and but you know at the time, when I say a lot of money, I mean because we were $25,000 in debt from credit cards and stuff. But you know that was the state we were in when we recorded that tune, and a third of the record. We didn't have a place to put out our records. We had no idea what the future held for us. We were just continuing to do our thing. And that's what the sound of that is. We even mixed it on like a shitty Ampex 406, which is kind of crappy tape. It's like, you know
Hmm.
how you have chrome tape with
Yeah,
cassettes, normal tape? It was like the normal tape version of the tape.
yeah.
It was like a Radio Shack version of the tape.
I was gonna say the discount pack, like the buy in
But
bulk, good
well,
value.
then we went to Chicago to mix the other stuff, and we were like, well, let's remix those songs we did in Missoula. And we started trying, and we're like, what are we? Let's play the original one, and we played it back, and we're like, fuck it, it's done. Who
Yeah.
cares? It has tape hiss or whatever, but it sounds great, you know. So we quit trying to fix it. But yeah, that's the story behind that tune, and I think it's an awesome song, and I really love all the playing on it. Michael plays great on it. The bass playing is great on it, I have to say, and Andy's, you know, out of control. It's
Yeah.
pretty good.
It's
Yeah,
it's a great first song. Like I said, a statement of
yeah,
intent song, right? It sort of
yeah.
lets you know what's up
If
immediately.
you don't like that, you should just take the record off.
Yeah.
You know.
Turn it off.
Yeah,
You know, push
yeah,
pause on the Spotify, take the needle off the
yeah.
record. It's
It's
not for
not for
you.
you. Exactly. Right.
And I can't believe I forgot to mention yeah, that was your first record on Matador. And
Hmm.
so it's good to know you did in fact call your friend Gerard early on.
Yeah. Later on. Yeah. 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 No. I was shocked. You know, I thought it was going to be this whole thing where we'd have to find some friends to give us money to put out an album, and then all of a sudden, the two labels that I was really would like to have been on were both wanting to do it. So that was great.
Yeah, that's like two supermodels are like, sure, I'll date you. It's like, okay,
Yeah,
cool.
right. Yeah, 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 totally.
I
Yeah.
mean, not to like be gross about it or anything, but just like,
No,
wow,
you're
that's
right. You're right.
okay.
Oh, all of a sudden the cheerleaders really like me. Yeah. Um, but Matador really went to the mat for that record. Gerard was convinced that we had. This has happened to us a few times. It happened with Corey too when he put out Lifestyle. He was convinced that it was like something that it was
Yeah,
going to be like
it's
slanted
over.
and
This
enchanted
this
or
is it.
something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and of course it wasn't. It was us, and it was weird, and so you know, not that it's not great, but so you know, they we had not quite carte blanche, but we talked them into giving us a really good record deal that was good for two records. It was a little too good to be more than that, and then you know, we got to make a double album, and we got to do that crazy. The original album has this crazy heavy cardboard cover, and
Yeah.
we didn't want to do a digital scan of the painting. So we're like, no, we have to do like a old school film, you know, shoot the films and do all that shit. And which was probably the right thing to do back in the 90s because the digital stuff looked like shit back then. But so it was because in
Hasn't
the
held
West
up.
was done
It
that way.
it
It
actually
looks
has an
terrible.
artifact kind of feel of like looking like a '90s record now.
Yeah, it looks like crap.
Hmm.
And one of the reasons the record looks so amazing is, besides the quality of the painting and stuff, is that we took the time to do that. So, but yeah, we were lucky that they did that. That they let us kind of go balls out on packaging and everything. You know, mastering all that stuff.
Nerves as a live song.
It was record. All the instruments were live. Yeah. It was 8-track, you know, so we couldn't really overdub. All that stuff we did in Missoula is live except for the vocal. Yeah. Yep.
I meant if you played it live, but that's
We
fantastic.
played it
Yeah.
live constant. We played it live constantly. Yeah.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
of
Because
it.
I know the answer to that question. I've seen you play it a couple times, but
Yeah,
like,
yeah. Most of the songs on this record we played live kind of a lot. Um, there's some sort of transitional songs or like Miracle Mile. We didn't play that live. But in general, you know, we cut our teeth as a live band, and we had to record as a live band most of the time. So because we didn't have time to fuck around, you know. So yeah, that song we've got played all the time though. We love playing it. Yeah.
yeah, how could you not? It seems like it'd be very satisfying to play.
Yeah, it's great. It's just super driving, and it's an awesome tune.
So
Really
second
good
up
one.
is drunk.
Cool.
So
Yeah,
let's put that on your tab.
Drunk was a song I wrote that before I'd figured out how to do anything with a key to like make things comfortable for myself singing wise. And a lot of the hallmarks of Silkworm, I think, are us pushing ourselves to our limits overall. but especially vocally, there's a lot of shit that would have been quote unquote better if we just knocked it down a step and a half. But we never did that. We just made it sound good instrumentally. We could usually never hear the vocals that well in practice. And then you get in the studio and you've got to try to like crank this thing out. So I sang that whole thing high in the studio, and it was just like, yeah, 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 yeah. It got really irritating. Even to me, well, maybe especially to me. But so then I did the thing where I sang some low and some high. I don't know. It worked okay. It was better live, honestly.
That was one of the things that kind of originally drew me to the song. I was like, oh, he's like almost like singing out of his range at first, and then he like drops it low, and that's kind of cool.
So
like it made me think about that. Like it was.
I guess it's cool. I don't know. It was what I had to do to make it work. I like the song. There's a reference in there to Boone's Farm wine.
Yeah.
Me and Joel Phelps used to drink that sometimes. The last time I drank it, back when I still drank, we went to a party and we both got jugs of Boone's Farm, and mine was green apple, which is referenced in the song. And I drank half of it, and then I became convinced that it didn't have alcohol in it, that the liquor store had ripped me off because I was underage. So I went in the kitchen and I found this huge bottle of vodka, and I filled the Boone's Farm bottle back up. So it had been all Boone's Farm, then it was half Boone's Farm, then it was half Boone's Farm and vodka. And I shook it up and I pounded it in like an hour. And then because that's how I rolled. And then,
my stomach flipped like twice by you saying that. I was like,
I eventually made it home. I walked home and I spent the night in the bathroom. Yeah. So
God. It's funny. Like anytime the rare time that I see Boone's Farm wine, which was already a punchline where I grew up in the Central Valley of California, I love that there's like drinking advice within the song. Like I'm trying to think of other songs that do that because you what is that? May I suggest a draft to digest the sugar in that Boone's Farm wine? And I was like, huh, that's really cool. Like, so is that something where was that brought on by your mixing the vodka and the Boone's Farm? You thinking about
probably? I mean, as a hard drinker in my teens, I didn't. The only times I got sick were when I did something like that. I mean, that saying, liquor before beer, never fear, beer before liquor, never sicker. So this was Boone's Farm before liquor, or Boone's Farm and then Boone's Farm and liquor, and just drinking like, a fifth of vodka and a jug of Boone's Farm. It's a pretty bad idea. But if I started off with the vodka, I would have been fine, but I didn't.
Also, another favorite line on that song from me is the never asked you to swim in that soup bowl of contempt.
Yeah,
which is kind of
and bar mop slap.
Yeah. The whole thing is like kind of like almost a word salad, but it's such an evocative image, and it's something that really caught my attention early on.
One of the things that strikes me about these records, my songs in particular, is just how wordy they are. Like I don't do that anymore because I like hearing the music, I guess, but at the time, it was kind of, the band was full of this kind of giddy, sort of headlong, rushing kind of excitement, especially at that time, because the band was great with Joel, but he was over it by the end, so there was a lot that we all had to deal with, all of us, getting through that final stage of him being in the band. And then when he split, it was very painful, the split, for all of us, but, then we were just like, oh shit, we can do whatever we want, So there's this like
you have one less opinion in it, yeah.
Yeah, and that's how you end up with a record that's an hour long,
Right.
At that point, even though we put out 2 records in '94, we still made a double album right after that, and that's how that happens. You get excited.
Well, I mean, it occurs to me that the whole thing kind of just sounds like you're just almost drunk on possibility and just raring to go, just going.
Yeah, we were excited, and we were the kind of band that we toured all the time. I mean, that year that record came out, we probably toured 6 months of the year, which is a hell of a lot when you don't make any money. I mean, it's one thing if you're a band that gets several $100s a night and you could pay for a Motel 6 every night, or whatever, but we made like whatever, it wasn't very much, and we were sleeping kind of wherever and just like taking showers whenever we could and
Yeah.
eating Taco Bell all the time and shit. So but we loved doing it so much that we were just grinding it out because it felt good, to do it. So yeah. Yeah, we were drunk on something. I don't know. But the
what is
weird thing
the
is we never had any delusions, I don't think. Like I don't
yeah.
remember ever thinking Gerard thinks this is the one, we're gonna what I remember thinking is Gerard Cosley thinks he's gonna sell our records, so they want to give us a $25,000 advance and a big publishing deal, so fuck it. We'll take it. And I guess we should tour a lot. So we'll pay ourselves $2,000 a month and go on tour, for half the year and see what happens. And it happened. Something happened.
That's awesome. Yeah, and so it did. The so then, any notes for recording on that or anything notable?
No, I just remember we did it at God, we either did it at Steve's or at CRC. We recorded a lot of the record at Chicago Recording Company from the 6 p.m. to whenever slot, the overnight slot, because it was cheap and Steve could get the time for cheap. And during that recording, Pearl Jam was auditioning drummers at CRC in another studio. And I remember playing bass through my Bassman, which is like 50 watts, and someone came in to ask us to turn down because we were disturbing Pearl Jam in the audition. And we didn't turn down. Yeah.
Sir, you're disturbing Pearl Jam.
Sir, you're disturbing Pearl Jam's drummer auditions. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't blame him. That's probably irritating. Yeah.
So then, so anything else for Drunk? That's Drunk. That's song 2.
No, I like that song. We played it a lot live, and I do think it was better live. It was I got the hang of singing it after a while. I probably, when we recorded, didn't quite have it down. So that's just minor regret on my part.
It's sort of like you make your bed, you gotta lie in it, right? It's
yeah, that's the way it is.
Yep. Guess that's what I did. Okay.
Yeah.
So then next up is the song that, for lack of a better term, was sort of identified as the single by some people, right? Wet Firecracker. This is a jam. I feel like this is a song you can play for people that are Cash fans.
Yeah.
And they'll kind of get it. Ripper though, also like a ripper of a tune. Like it's a good song.
Yeah, it's good. In retrospect, those kinds of straightforward, sort of poppier songs they're cool and stuff, but that wasn't our wheelhouse. And I think we were better when we were a little more, little weirder or something. But it's a good song, and it's constructed in a very sort of, if I can say so myself, clever way, where the first verse and I can't remember how it goes. The first verse and the second verse are like inverted somehow, and I can't remember exactly what I did on it, but I like switched the chords around in a way where the second verse is not the same chords, but they're related. Like it's almost like a mirror image thing. I can't remember exactly what I did, but it's got a good part where the guitars drop out and the drums just play. That's cool. And we made a video for that, the only video we ever made, which we had to do. And it cost the same amount that it cost to record the whole goddamn album. And it got played like once on MTV. And I don't know, it's kind of dumb video. Nothing against David Klyler who made it. It has more to do with us and our lack of imagination, probably. But
did you feel like that was a bit of a stretch? Like did you feel like that was kind of like, we're not really a video kind of band. Like why are we doing this?
We're not, to go back to Pearl Jam, we weren't climbing up on the main stacks, like in the Even Flow video. Yeah. When I saw the Even Flow video, I knew Pearl Jam was going to be huge.
Yeah.
Because of that. Because that guy was like, he's a front man, he knows how it goes. And we would just kind of stand there rocking back and forth, going blah, 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 all the time. And no one wants to watch that unless you're at the show. And I don't know. I hate videos generally, but we made one and that's the way it goes. It wasn't embarrassing to me at the time, and I could probably watch it now and not feel too bad about it.
Well, and it's also it's a snapshot in time too, right? Like it's you guys at that age, which is kind of nice, I
I
would
suppose.
imagine.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. It has my friend Greg Anderson's El Camino in it.
Oh yeah,
So,
well there
so
is no
that's
Camino. I
nice.
didn't know it was Greg Anderson's, but there you
That was
go.
Greg's El Camino. Yeah. Rusted out. Rusted out El Camino. Yeah.
Uh, the so there's a lot of good lines on that one.
Yeah.
Um,
That song is
and
about my roommate in college, who I won't say his full name because I don't want to embarrass him. His name is John. And when I when I first came to school, I got to the dorm room, and I just picked a dorm room where you could smoke, like because I don't know why I didn't
that
smoke
was
that
the
much,
motivating concern of the dorm
but
room.
I wanted to smoke in my room, and I wanted to have a cafeteria in the basement. So I picked this dorm. It was a total party dorm, unbeknownst to me, which worked out fine, on the north side of campus. And this fella, John, was my roommate. And I go into the room the first day, and on one wall of the dorm room is a Confederate flag tapestry. And on the other
Wow.
wall is an Iron Maiden tapestry.
Wow.
And I was like, shit, I fucked up.
You know where you are.
Yeah.
You're in the
But
jungle.
John was a very nice guy. We got along great. And we both like to party, as they say. So that song is about John partying his way out of Northwestern University. And luckily me just dodging the bullet there. So yeah, that's what that's about.
It's I
More
think
or
I
less.
one thing I actually do remember from our previous conversations is that that's a song I've heard covered now and again. It's never quite the same. It doesn't quite hit exactly the same, but
No, there's some tricks in there that not like it's anything magic, but there's some little things in there that you wouldn't know to duplicate unless you knew what they were. Yeah. I don't even remember what they are. I just know they were weird bits.
no, it's notable. But it's also one that seems like, oh, if you see a band play a Silkworm cover, like, okay, that's shorthand in some ways that
It's
you
usually
have
too
something in
bar
common with
chordy, I
them.
think. There are too many fifths when people play it. That's a hint for anyone who cares. Avoid the
Good.
fifths, as I recall.
Protonic Reversal exclusive. Avoid the
Andy
fifths.
has this way of playing open chords so they sound like big meaty bar chords. And I don't know what he does, but there are a few different things that he does with fingerings to spread it out a little bit so it's not so
Yeah.
and you'd have to talk to him about that. But
That song, live favorite. I mean, that's
yeah,
rips.
we played it a lot for a while and then
It's a
not
gimme.
very much at all for a while. Yeah.
Yeah, did you ever get sick of it? Did you ever feel like it was formulaic or just like not really? Yeah.
Well, just kind of like I said before, like it's us trying something on and doing it and doing a fine job. But a song like Slow Hands, which is the next song, I think.
It is.
That's prototypical Worm and got played forever after we learned it.
Well, and so last thing with Wet Firecracker, and again for the younger listeners, or I guess maybe the ones that don't pay that close attention. I mean, that was the kind of time that that could have been maybe that's a little later, but like a Cut Your Hair, or like kind of had that moment, like it had that vibe of like, if this were to hit right, like it would make sense that, hey, why don't you guys do a video? Like that makes sense. You know what I mean? Based upon the from the outside perspective.
When I go back and listen to shit now, I usually think it's awesome, but I also completely understand why it sold exactly as many records as it sold. Like it's pretty weird music in a not super obvious way. It's not like weird, like consciously weird music. There's something about it that's just a little bit touched, and I don't know. I wouldn't make music like that now, and I'm glad we did it then. But I totally understand why Gerard didn't make his money back on that record. Put it that way.
Right. Well, but it's also like, what was that? So it's 96, right? So this is like kind of right at the tail end of the gold rush when major labels kind of figured out how to like manufacture their own bands, where it's like, oh, we don't need to like find bands. We can just make our own.
Yeah, we can make our own Seattle wherever we want.
Exactly.
In the studio. Yeah. It really helped to be from Seattle back then. Got a lot of good dinners out of it.
So then let's talk about Slow Hands, which is kind of a Silkworm all time for me. Like I think that's kind of one of many. No, sit down. You got to listen to this kind of tunes.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about Slow Hands.
Well, Andy had a friend named Jean-Luc in college, and I don't know if it's really about him or if he just took his name. He was listening. We all listened to Basement Tapes a lot, the Bob Dylan
Mm-hmm.
and band Basement Tapes. That was a van favorite. We listened to it like about a million times. Of course, later with Steve Malkmus, we had this thing, the Crust Brothers, and our first show we did a whole bunch of Basement Tape songs. But we loved that record. It was weird and great, and a lot of the band records, the band, are pretty kind of carefully like mythologized, like and thought out.
Yeah.
Like we're like this, you know. And that record was very not like that. I thought it was just a bunch of guys, you know, going for it and just being weird. And there's a lot of just rando name dropping in the songs of like weird names. And so Andy got
Right.
really into that, where he would just throw Sakona Lee, like, I don't know who that is, or Jean-Luc or whatever. He just throw these names in like they were people he knew.
Right.
But
Right.
it's just one of those songs. I think it's about, you know, stalling out in life. And Slow Hands is just, that's because Clapton's nickname was Slow Hand. And
Oh
so
yeah.
we were calling Andy Slow Hands for a while, I think, as a joke. Plural, like both his hands were slow. Of course, Andy's hands are about 10 times faster than Clapton's, I think. But
Mm-hmm.
uh, Andy's a very fleet guitar player, but especially when he wants to shred. But we just called the song Slow Hands, and you know, like I said, working title stuck. So we're
Right.
too lazy to come up with a different title for it.
I love the line where the drunks go to fall down. It struck me as being like, I was like, that being incredibly thoughtful, almost like in the way that Bukowski, as much as he has his problems, like just identified and wrote about some things like so specifically that it's sort of like respect, you know, doff of the cap. That was
Yeah.
I think when I think about this record, I think about, you know, then there's a lot of lyrics like that, but that's something where it's like just like small, even snippets, like pieces of verses where it's like, wow, yeah, that's the image. I mean, you know, the D Train. I had Bart. You know, I didn't have the D Train, but I think people can identify with that for sure. And then Shredder. There's some shredding. There's some like in a way that's like personally, I would say that some of the guitar work reminds me of like Greg Sage or something in a way. Not that it sounds like Greg Sage, but in the way that it comes from a very punk rock place, but it's just the economy of motion and just, all right, this is going to do the thing. Let's go.
Yeah. Well, and Sage was really, I know this because this fellow I mentioned before, Bob Jeniker, he put out those early Whitebirds albums, and he showed me some stuff that Sage wrote about trying to write a bio for the band or whatever. And he was really into, at least in these things, he was comparing himself to Jeff Beck and people like that, which is not crazy, you know.
No, not at all.
He's that good of a guitar player.
Absolutely.
And while he is a punk rock guitar player, he has that flair for a tune, you know, and playing melodically or flash, you know. And Andy had that in spades, you know. He listened to all that stuff. But Andy also comes from a shredder background, you know, Metallica and Voivod and Megadeth and stuff like that. He listened to that stuff a lot when he was a teenager. So that all influenced that. And as good as the solo is on the recorded version, like there's some live versions that are just like totally bonkers. Yeah. Great. Where he would play for 3 or 4 minutes, you know.
Yeah, just go like it's like I wouldn't ask you to stop, and I don't want you to stop. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was a whole body, whole band thing where on a song like that or Don't Make Plans on that record, he would get going, and Michael and I always looked at Michael when we played, when it was just me playing, when I wasn't singing, and we would just not even look at each other, but just zone, you know, the whole time. And eventually you'd open your eyes and you'd be turned around, 90 degrees from where you thought you should be, and
like
you'd forget what club you were in, and you'd be like, what am I doing? Are we playing another song after this? Are we playing a song? Am I on stage right now?
What is playing?
Yeah.
What is a guitar?
I love that feeling. Like anytime I can get that feeling out of playing, it's good. So yeah.
And again, this we've already covered it. This isn't one I need to ask, but obviously live song. Like was there ever any doubt for this one of like, oh no, this one flies? Yeah. I mean, it seems like that's a pretty much a no-brainer for that one, where it's like, oh yes, this is special. This is cool.
We got into a jag of opening shows with it for a while.
Wow.
Which is pretty funny, because people would come and they'd be like, oh, check out this band, I heard they're on Matador, and then we'd play that for like 10 minutes. And again, not a mystery as to why things turned out the way they did.
Wonder why things turned out the way they did. Yeah, exactly.
Why are we more popular?
Can't put my finger on it. Must be something.
Yeah, drunk all the time.
Me. So then, after Slow Hands, another total change up in tone. You got Cannibal.
Yeah, I just thought of that song the other day, and I couldn't remember how it went. Someone mentioned it to me. I was like, what's the, and then I looked it up and it all came back. I haven't played it yet, but I really like that one. That's another one where it's me sort of enforcing this particular aesthetic on the band that wasn't necessarily our most natural thing to do, but we could do it. And that's the 3-minute pop song type thing. But there's something about there's kind of an ambivalent vibe to the song. Like the narrator is not sold on what's going on. I don't know how to describe it. And I really like that. Like, it's not a narrative like straightforward, you broke my heart, or straightforward, I love you. It's just like this, like, I don't know, I sort of feel like eating you, but I sort of not really into it. And I think I might leave and go do something else,
Yeah.
So there's this, I like that kind of, not really confusion, even just ambivalence,
like motivated but maybe unclear on the motivations, or direction.
I want to do something and I don't know what it is. That's kind of what it is.
I love the I don't know if you call it a bridge line or what, but it takes a lot of nerve to get up in the morning. I actually think about that sometimes when I get up in the morning, and that makes me laugh.
Yeah, well, I think it's true at any age, but especially the age we were then. When we weren't on the road, I remember it. I mean, I had a great job working at the record store and stuff, but at that point, I wasn't even doing that so much anymore. So I was just driving cab or whatever. So when I wasn't on tour, my life was kind of on hold almost, I felt like I was in between being on tour. So like, yeah, I remember that feeling of just like,
yeah.
What am I doing today? I guess I'm gonna go buy some food, and I have like $5. I could buy a book, at the bookstore. Right. So yeah, it's a funny time of life, being rootless and kind of being able to do whatever you want, but not having any dough. A lot of people have gone through that period of life. It's pretty rewarding in some ways, but
yeah, you've got all the freedom in the world, but do you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it's good. Right. Freedom with a certain amount of constraints, to put it bluntly.
Yeah, totally.
Did you did that one make into the live set when you played?
Yeah, we played it. We played that song quite a bit. We hashed it out live, and it took a while. It has a little bit of a tricky rhythm and spots to it, and not like unnatural for us, but like I said, I was kind of shoehorning the band into this structure that wasn't super natural for us,
Do you have any bands you were thinking of when you were kind of like, akin to, in the same fruit basket as
not that
X,
song?
Y, and Z? Yeah.
No, not that song. That just came out, and one of the reasons I like it is it came out in like 5 minutes. I didn't have to work it. at all. That's always, I always have a soft spot for those songs when they happen, because that's cool. I like the feeling of writing it, you know.
Yeah.
And I think it comes through in the quality of the tune. There's a automatic quality to it that's good, you know.
Yeah, it feels very not to say that it lacks weight, but it feels very easy. It feels like an easy song.
Right. It's almost a breezy kind of tune, which we almost never did. But that song has that quality to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to hear someone else do it sometime, actually, because I think you could do it in a very kind of light way. That would probably be cool.
I mean, I think it would hold up.
Yeah, probably. I don't know.
I guess
who fucking knows?
We can call it the Protonic Reversal Challenge.
yeah. We'll never know.
So then next up is Tarnished Angel.
Yeah, so this song is the Tarnished Angel is a movie by Douglas Sirk, The Tarnished Angels. And we got on this jag of watching Douglas Sirk movies. A bunch of us, we would watch that. There's a song called Written on the Wind on Libertine. That's a Douglas Sirk movie. Whatever those other ones are, we liked all those movies. They're these kind of melodramas that were made in the 50s or 60s. And Tarnished Angel, I think, has I don't know, who knows? I can't remember who's in it. But
I can tell you right now because I just looked it up. It's Rock Hudson, Robert Stack.
Yes, Robert
Dorothy
Stack
Malone.
and Rock Hudson. And I forget who the female lead is in it. Kim Novak?
No. Dorothy Malone.
Oh, okay. But there's a subtext to it that I think Sirk was aware of, where, you know, Rock Hudson was gay. And I think
she's in The Big Sleep. That's what I was thinking. Okay, okay.
Yeah,
yes, sorry.
I think that added a kind of a psychodrama aspect to these movies that he was aware of. Kind of like when Orson Welles made The Trial and cast Anthony Perkins in it. That was the subtext of that movie as well. So
yeah, totally. Okay.
So I think that played into the tune maybe a little bit, and Andy just liked the movie and used that as a jumping off point for the song.
Tell me the bass line. Tell me about that.
That's a good one. That's a good loping bass line.
Yeah, it lopes. It's a total loper, but in a good way. Like I actually use that as an example of a good loping bass line once.
Yeah, I like bass lines that seem cyclical, even if they're not, and seem like they could go on forever. They're not too chopped up, and they're not too ambitious, and they just kind of keep rolling like that, you know. And that's what that one does. It's good. I did a good job on that one. Yeah.
Bravo.
That was recorded at CRC. Probably at like 2 a.m. or something. Yeah.
That's another loquacious one as well.
A lot of blabbing.
But in a good way. Like, it's sort of like, you know, if it makes you run to your dictionary or dictionary.com to learn a new word, nothing. I mean, like, what is that? The crowd's a rapacious beast. Like Jesus Christ. The balls. But, like, you know, it's an awesome line.
That was probably about some show that we played in West Virginia or something.
You're right.
I don't know.
Do you I don't remember if I ever said, was this a live song? I don't remember if I saw you guys play this live.
Yeah.
I think I did. I think I see you play a couple times live.
Yeah, we played it live. Not quite as much as some of those other ones. Not as much as Slow Hands or Nerves. Or but quite a bit.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you have any specific remembrances for like recording or anything with that? Getting this one down? Because this has got some kind of, there's a lot of separation with all of it. Just by nature of the fact there's like one less, you know, instrument around. But this one is kind of a good example of like Silkworm Power Trio in full effect. Yeah.
It's just us playing, and I can't remember if Andy put the guitar solo on later or not, but it was mostly live. You know, we cut almost everything live because we were a live band, and we weren't, generally speaking, learning things in the studio. Andy would finish lyrics in the studio often, but you know, we knew the songs when we went in. We had to, because we had to make the records in a few days. Although this record was made over a course of probably about 12 days at a bunch of different recording sessions. And we spent probably 12 or 13 grand on it, which was, God, maybe that's the most we ever spent on a record, if only because Steve recorded some of the later records for almost nothing, uh, or for like a quarter of what they should have cost. That's the only reason that we didn't spend 20 grand on the Italian Platinum or whatever. But yeah, I remember we spent about 13,000. Oh, and we tipped Steve $500. We gave a
Uh,
tip.
yeah, that's
That made
as
him a
one
friend
does.
for life. Honestly,
Yeah,
that's what
yeah,
did it. That
I'm
tipped
sure.
him over from being a sort of, someone who put up with our shit, like the music going up, to like, oh, I love those Silkworm guys. They
Yeah,
tipped me
yeah,
$500. Yeah,
yeah. There's good question from the chat box. How much did you guys work the songs live before recording them usually?
to death. I mean, on, on that record, on all the records up through that record, we played all those songs all the time live, except for like the acoustic ones or whatever.
Yeah,
But
the ones that wouldn't fit into a live set, sir. Yeah.
yeah, they got played. Like, I mean, like I said, we were touring 6 months out of the year. We just beat the shit out of them on the road, which is a good way to do it if you can tour. And that's how we learned to play, was by going on the road and just playing night after night after night after night after night after night. And then you come home and you practice every night, or 3 nights a week or 4 nights a week. And because you didn't have anything else to do, and you wanted to be in a band, and that's what it took to get good. So, yeah, we played them a lot. I'd say that Developer was still mostly like that. And then by the time we started making the other records, they were still played live a lot, but there was a little bit more experimentation and stuff going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was I wish I could attribute the author of the quote, but there's a quote that goes something along the lines of like, a song never truly tells you what it is until you've played it live over and over and over again.
Yeah. Yeah. You get a lot out of it. And it doesn't, for me, it never got boring, and it never does get boring. There's always something new that comes out in what you're doing, if you're tuned into what you're doing and it's any good. I think it always is. You can't overdo it, as far as I'm concerned. I don't think everybody feels that way. No, a lot of people don't want to go on the road and pound the same things out every night, but I'll do it. I'm totally fine.
Well, if you're enjoying it, that's
Yeah.
as long as you're not up there thinking about your laundry or whatever.
Yeah. Plus,
Then,
I just have a limited imagination, I think. So, yeah, it doesn't take very much to keep me happy.
Quicksand is the next one up.
Oh, yeah. Talk about a word salad. Endless singing.
Yeah, this is another wordy one. There's in a good way. Like, it's awesome, but it seems like, what I was, the back of my mind, I'm always like, I wonder how long it took him to remember all the lyrics.
Yeah, not that long. It makes some kind of sense to me in my head, but yeah, I don't know. Why did I do that? I don't know. It just came out that way. That song has another little trick thing of the guitar plays a descending thing, and then the bass plays a descending thing right after it. And so there's this kind of like rolling quality to it that I liked. And Michael was such a musical drummer that he picked up on that, and it came through in the way he played it. And then the whole thing just kind of falls together when that happens. That's a good feeling.
It seems very off the cuff, even though, like, obviously it isn't at all. But
I think it was pretty off the cuff. Yeah, I think the lyric was probably first draft. Yeah, not a lot of rewrites on that one, I don't think.
What is it? Tonight's act is in a double garbage bag. Like, I think that's
double line garbage bag.
Double line garbage bag. Yeah, that's pretty killer.
Yeah, that's definitely from touring a lot.
Did you I'm going to keep the deviations to a minimum, but there's a decent enough question from the chat box here about when you guys were in the fitness craze, getting the introductory gym memberships.
Oh,
in
yeah.
towns. Would you mind
So
talking about that real quick?
Andy and I went on this quest when we were kids. It seems quaint to me now, but I was on a quest to hit 2 bills for my weight, 200 pounds, and I weighed about high 180s, 190. So I really wanted to hit 200, which of course now is like trivially easy. But at the time, I couldn't stand to do it. I couldn't manage to do it. But so Andy and I went to BQ workout on Capitol Hill, which was a great gym because it was like 100% gay. So the meatheads were all gay guys, which meant they were cool and not dicks to, the women who were just as strong as they were. And it was great. It was a great place. But we would go there and lift weights, and we would go to the university and lift weights. And Andy, I remember, would get mad because he's an ectomorph, so he would get strong, but he was still kind of scrawny. And I bulk up really easy, so I
Yeah.
got all like bulky. And then we would go on tour, and we would want to keep lifting. So it's not like we were like, we didn't wear bandanas or tank tops or anything like that. But like we would
Flex between songs.
yeah, we would find gyms that had cheap deals, and we would go there on the road sometimes and lift or whatever. We couldn't afford hotels that had the exercise rooms.
No, no.
So
Yeah.
so we would go to like YMCA's and stuff like that sometimes. Yeah, good times.
I was I was doing the dishes, and I was thinking about how much I like the line. It's the last verse. Ever wonder why there's a house that sits as empty as the day that someone finished building it?
Yeah.
And I realized that's another one that when looking at houses, like when moving or whatever, I've thought about that line. That line's kind of like in the constant cacophony of nonsense that goes through my head. That like is a line that sometimes will go when I think about it. What brought that to mind for that line?
Well, on a serious note, I think quicksand is just something that once you get in it, you can't get out. I mean, I've only known one person who's gotten stuck in quicksand. That's Steve Albini, because he's
Really?
a fucking idiot, and he walked out into quicksand. Like he and Heather were on vacation, I think in Hawaii maybe, and the sign said, "Careful, quicksand." And he's like, "Oh, quicksand," and Heather's like, "Don't go out there, you dumbass," And he walked out in it, and you start sinking because it's quicksand. And somehow he managed to get out. But it sucks you in, and you can't get out, and you're trapped, and eventually you succumb. And so a lot of that time period was wondering if what we were doing was worth doing, probably on some level. Not while we were on stage, but like I said, you get home and you have to pay rent, and you just went on tour and you have like $100, So, and you're like, what am I? That was great, but now I'm home and I have to deal with this shit, and my cat's sick or whatever. And you're like, is this the kind of life that I need to be leading? Should I have stayed in school? But so it's kind of about that, but it's also about looking around you and seeing that no one else is really doing any better. The people
Right.
who did go to school,
Sure,
to
yeah.
school and graduate with an engineering degree the way I did later on or whatever, and have real jobs and kids or whatever. They're not happy. They have all the same kind of doubts and misgivings about the game of life that you might. So it's kind of just about that, and that line is about that too. Hopping around, trying to find some kind of contentedness and while dealing with just the human condition of never really being satisfied with stuff. So that's where
Well,
I'm coming from.
it's funny you had a actual physical quicksand story, because being of the age that I am, I grew up thinking that quicksand was going to be a much greater threat than it actually was, because every
Yeah.
movie, TV show,
like Bigfoot.
It's like, oh man, watch out for the quicksand. It's like, no, that quicksand's actually pretty rare.
Yeah. But
It's
it
not
turns out
like
you can go out into it and get out. As long
yeah,
as you're quick about it.
even then, it's not as big of a deal as you think, because it was like this narrative device for all these shows and movies and things along the you strand the hero in the quicksand, like whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's but it is interesting because the actual quicksand is as a metaphor or as a real thing is actually a pretty fascinating concept.
Yeah,
Ultimately.
yeah, I think so. At least it was interesting enough to me.
Yeah. Playing that one live.
Yeah, we did when we recorded it, but it didn't really make the cut off that record. I mean, which is a funny thing to say because the guy who puts out our records now, John Solomon, put out a single of that song and another song.
I'm glad you said it. Yeah,
because he wanted to do it.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have been my pick. It's probably how many songs are on the record? 14.
16.
16. It's probably the ninth best song on the record. I'm just kidding. I don't know. Maybe not. Let me take a look.
That'd be hard to. That'd be pretty cruel to like establish a rank 7, for that.
8. I'm gonna say 9. It's like the 11th or 12th best song on the record, I think. Yeah. But thank you, John. It's a very nice sleeve. Very nice letterpress sleeve.
Annie in the chat box. John lives for recycling. That's an excellent comment. I would like that if this was Facebook.
Yeah.
Ticket to Lane.
Yeah, I like that. It's sort of we started to kind of slow down a little bit in terms of and get a little bit more spaced out on our records after Firewater. Yeah, we did that more often, and that song was kind of a proto version of that, or like almost like a precursor to it. I don't think it's 100% successful, but the sound of it is cool, and I think it has a dead sound to it. It may have been the first time we ever recorded like that, because Steve's known for this kind of thing, and it's cool. So of course you want to do that because it sounds awesome. But then I wanted to make a more intimate sound for that song, and we deadened it up a lot, and it sounded really cool. It sounded to me like an old soul record or whatever. Not that I necessarily could pull that off vocally at that time, but I really like the feel of that tune, and the general sentiment of that song is just kind of a like I remember listening to a record like TB Sheets by Van Morrison, which is just like, it's called TB Sheets, so that was kind of, I didn't intentionally model it on anything like that, and I obviously can't do what he can do, but that kind of vibe of just like intense downer kind of thing. This is sort of a gentler version of that.
I mean, it's certainly not something I noticed when I first started listening to the record, but years later, I was like, oh, this is kind of like almost Stonesy kind of vibe in a way, like in that same sort of mining that same territory that you're speaking about.
Well, the title is totally like a Moonlight Mile or one of those titles, But yeah, I mean, we listened to we all love the Rolling. I like them better than I do now, probably, but I still, will always be a fan. And we listened to this one bootleg called Red Spring Symphony over and over again in the band. We had a tape that had Samurai Rock Band by Cheap Trick on one side and Bed Spring Symphony on the other side, and we listened to that thing like endlessly. Yeah.
If you like rock music, that's an okay thing. Yeah.
yeah. We were fans of them. So yeah, it definitely has that kind of a feel to it. Or our attempt at that. Yeah.
I love the it's kind of like that, almost like so sparse, but he tried a little and got somewhere. You worked hard and got no place.
Yeah.
Like from the Talking Blues world, almost. Just like, oh man, oh come on.
Yeah, it's very blues. That whole the whole sentiment of that song is sort of like an extra sort of emo, sort of pathos bathed version of the blues. Yeah. Good way of putting it. Yeah, totally. I like that line. That's a good line.
This song as a live song?
Occasionally, yeah. I don't remember playing it a lot. It was a bit tricky to sing because there was a high bit, and
you're kind of right up on it.
It was such a downer that sequencing it was not easy. An interesting thing about this record is I know many people, friends of mine, have said, I think it's great, but if it was a single album, it would be even better. I was like, oh, what would you take off it, or
What'd you
what would you
drop?
put?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, what would you put on? I seriously, you're not going to hurt my feelings. They'd be like, oh, well, this song, this song, this song, and then the next person who would say that to me, which this happened, 6 or 7 times. Totally different 4 songs. They would take off of it, or 5 songs. I'd take all the slow ones off, or I would take all the shitty fast ones off, or whatever. So I don't know how many people would say that one to make the cut. I like it. I think it's good. We didn't play it a ton live, though.
I think I think it serves a purpose that it's a song that does the exact thing it's supposed to do at the exact point it should in the record too. And there's something to be said for that.
It's a change of pace. It's like we did play Winter by the Rolling Stones off of Goat's Head Soup. We played that live a fair amount. We recorded that on the Einheit record that we made with our friend.
Oh yeah. Forgot about that record. Yeah.
And that's a great song. We did a really good version of it. And did I sing it? I did. But anyway, it's like that. Like Winter is just a change of pace tune on Goat's Head Soup, and that's what it is. It's a change of pace, basically.
Swings.
I think Swings is my best song on the record. I think it's great, and it's probably one of the best songs I wrote in the Worm. It wrote itself, and the whole thing. I had the drums, I had everything, and I sang it to those guys. I was like, "This is how it goes." So that was one of those rare times where it wasn't just play whatever you want. I was like, "This is how the drums go."
It goes like this.
Yeah, and that song's about Joel, and the intense sadness of the quartet version of the band falling apart. And Swings is just mood swings, I think. Which, when you're in a situation you just have to get out of and you're not out of it, that anybody's liable to experience those. So,
yeah.
But I think there was a little bit of other stuff in there, but that it was almost all that, as I recall. And feeling this, it's a weird state to be in because I wasn't sympathetic to him at the time at all. I was just
right.
I wasn't capable of being sympathetic, really, but I was sad, and I recognized he was having difficulty.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I was pissed off, and I felt this intense loss of this thing that we'd spent all these years, because 96, when we recorded that song in 95 or whatever, that was, Joel and I started playing together in 85. So we've been playing together for 10 years. When he quit, we've been playing together for 9 years. So, that's a long time. That's a long relationship. And
it is. It's longer than some marriages.
yeah. There were aspects of that that were just really, really hard to accept. And I think that was a very, very clear cut kind of expression of how I felt about the whole thing at that time, And we played the shit out of that, and we played it until the band ended, But I love the song. I think it's great.
I think it's a actually totally underrated one in the
Pantheon.
Pantheon.
I think so too, probably. Yeah.
I mean, I've God, just that. I know they made a big mistake on you, and Undertow was threatening to drag me down too. It's like,
yeah. Of course, it's melodramatic. I did not make a big mistake on Joel Phelps.
No, of course not.
One of the luckiest things in my life was to be able to play music with him as long as I did, and steal all the shit that I stole from him, which is a lot. Probably not quite enough, but at the time you feel all this stuff, and you're like, I remember the feeling when at the end, it was so bad, intensely bad.
Yeah. And it was still it was pretty fresh at the time too. I mean, this is like,
yeah, it was like
25 years ago, and it was fresh.
It was breaking up with someone you really love,
Yeah.
It's super hard to do that. So, Um, yeah, and I haven't had that experience very much in my life. But that was one of those times for sure. So yeah, so I got a good tune out of it at least.
Yeah, I mean, so it's interesting. They could very easily be construed and has been construed as a relationship song, right?
Yeah,
Like a oh, it didn't work out and it was brutal kind of
yeah,
man
and
and
it
woman.
is.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it absolutely is. Just happens to be
Yeah,
of a musical nature as well.
everything but the sex, was in there. Yeah.
uh good comment from the chat box. You haven't lived until you've had an ex-girlfriend sing swings to you on the wrong side of a restraining order.
Oh, yikes.
I'm gonna assume that's shtick, and I'm gonna say that's good shtick. Yeah, that's so that's it's a heavy point of the record too. Did when you're thinking about sequencing, like did it like were you like, where do we put this one, or did you kind of know that was like where it was going to be?
I don't remember that so much. At the time, you kind of think of things as being equal in terms of their worth. And it's
Right.
clear to me now, like the things were like where I was talking about where I would shoehorn the band into playing these songs that like Cannibal's good or Wet Firecracker, they're good, but that's not our natural wheelhouse. Whereas Swings is right in there. That's what we did. And
like it almost feels like it could be on Developer in a way. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like it's
it
got
could
that
be on
vibe.
any of the records.
Yeah.
Because it's just kind of, I mean, it's I've been mean to myself already, so I think it's timeless as a song. And the state, I think it's a very clear statement that with no adornment, there's no word salad in that song.
But it's like the opposite of word salad. Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
And that's what I try to do now. If I can't do that, then I don't keep the tune.
It occurs to me that like that'd be a song that I was thinking of Dolly Parton, but she like writes all her own stuff. But it's like, oh man, I would totally
yeah.
a Johnny Cash was it Rick Rubin Johnny Cash situation or something.
It's like an old
song
country song.
Like. Yes, it's got that
And
vibe.
And when you get that, and I've realized this over the years, making a lot of records with a lot of different attempts to do a lot of things. When I get that, I know I've done it. For myself, I've made it. I've hit the mark. And there's nothing complicated about it. It's just you have to like capture a feeling or a moment or something substantially in a very clear way. And I don't think there's a lot of room for interpretation in that song. It means what it means. Yeah.
it's right there.
You don't interpret "I'm so lonesome I could cry." That's what it means.
It's like
here's the not that I'm putting myself in that league, but you know what I mean. It's like clean cut. It clear cut. It means exactly what it says it means, and that's it.
It's like you open up the paper package where the meat is, and there's a heart inside. It's like, oh
yeah,
well, it's pretty clear what that is. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Next one up is Severance Bay.
Yeah, this song is rad.
Change up in mood.
Yeah. Andy was forced to go to Alaska as a kid, kind of a lot. His parents would drive up there. His dad published pictorial histories. I have a couple of them around here someplace.
Really?
Yeah, here.
Should really have him on the show sometime.
This is funny that I have it. This is a pictorial history of Missoula, Montana.
Oh, wow. How cool.
Journey
through Missoula history. How awesome.
And so Stan Cohen is the guy. But anyway, Andy's dad would make him like travel in the VW bus to Alaska, and sometimes the engine would melt and they'd get stuck in like the northern reaches of Canada for a while before they could complete the trip. But so he's always been kind of obsessed with Alaska, I think. And he's of course a history guy, and he writes a lot of his songs, especially during that period, were not particularly personal. They were projections, or he would take things from history and try to create a narrative.
Allegoricize? That's not a word. Make it into an allegory. Yeah.
Yeah, but he was much more conscious about the way he crafted songs than like I was. I just wanted to sort of barf it out there. and he would do all this work to like kind of rot, they were like rot
Yeah.
by him. And that was one of those songs. And that's just about a big earthquake or Prince William sound and this like degenerate, I don't know, probably oil worker guy or something who gets caught in it. But it's a good title and it's a great song and the guitar playing is good on it. Joel Phelps used to play that one sometimes in his solo shows. I heard him play that a few times. So
really? Oh, wow, that's
him.
awesome. That's great.
Good enough for him. Good enough for us.
Yeah.
I think we played it live a fair amount, but I don't remember exactly. Not as much as some of the other ones. It's a good song. That's a dry sound one too.
Yeah,
So
very dry.
Yeah.
And that was did you have a thought towards sound wise, like having that like where it is? Like coming out of like the slow burner, the classic country song.
So we wouldn't have, even compared to the other songs, it's pretty weird. So we wouldn't have put it way up front on the record. And I think it just slotted in where it was to keep things moving. You don't want to have too many bummers right in a row. And I mean, it's about a guy dying in an earthquake. So,
well, yeah, I was gonna say the subject matter is a bummer, but it's kind of jaunty. Like it's got
it has this like sea chanty feel to it.
Yeah, it's like, oh, we're doing some oil rig guy stuff. Okay, cool. Did you? Was this one that you guys played?
We played it some. I don't remember playing it a ton. I mean, we definitely played it live, but I think it was less of a showstopper. It didn't have some of the sort of grand qualities on stage that some of the other ones did. So we didn't beat the hell out of it.
Right.
Down.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to, right? It's like so, and also that's something that at this point were you kind of getting into the idea of like, hey, it's okay for some songs to be just for the record, or were you even thinking that far ahead?
Yeah, sure. And when you make a record that's an hour long, it's going to have all kinds of light and shade, as GB Page likes to say on it. And so you have different chiaroscuro. Is that how you say that word? But it has this like it plays this role on the album. And it's a pretty central song to that. I definitely wouldn't, if I were to make a single album version of this record, I would not take that song off at all, ever. It's kind of a linchpin song on the record in a weird way. But it's not one of the bigger moments on the record, if that makes sense. So it didn't always make set list. But we played it live a fair amount, I suppose.
The recording on this, I guess we talked a little bit about the recording early on, but like, you knocked the hell out of a lot of these live, but I mean, were they mostly like first, second takes? Did you kind of drill them down?
Yeah.
Like
we hardly ever did more than 2 takes. And part of that was time. And part of it is just because who gives a shit, if you've really worked it out, you don't need more than a couple takes. Like even later records, like the last Bottomless Pit record, those are all first or second takes, almost all of them.
Yeah.
Because we did that with that record. We played those songs for 3 years, So I'm a big fan of getting it done and not fretting it too much. I mean, I've done both. And sometimes good stuff happens when you really work something. But most of the time it's better if you just, pound it and get it right, pretty quickly, I think.
Were you thinking, because I mean, obviously, as we established, like it's kind of like the Andy Unleashed guitar record, but it's also, it's pretty immediate sounding even for the more claustrophobic or gentle songs. But did you ever have an idea for to do embellishments, like as you did later with the piano and overdubs and things along those lines?
We weren't really on that wavelength then, and I don't know why, because I certainly liked plenty of music that had shit on it, but I think we were
like, I'm thinking like
space.
Double Nickels on the Dime, you know what I mean, where it's like there's a great record, but it's like, oh yeah, there's history lesson where they're just, it's like, oh, what is this, oh, okay, cool, like what?
I don't know, we were still very much a live band, and that was our main focus. And overdubbing a guitar solo was about as far as we wanted to go with it. Like, I think there's a point at which the limitations of the band really define what you are, and that's true of playing too. Like, what makes someone a unique instrumentalist or unique singer is what they can't do a lot of the time. So you can't do things, and you make up stuff, ways around it. Like Robert Smith cannot hit a note square. He can't do it.
That's
And
why he was always
like,
moving up and down. Yeah.
yeah, he's a great singer.
Yeah.
He can't hit a note, because he's learned how to swoop and hover and dance around what on a piano would be ding, 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 ding. And, guy's awesome. So
Okay.
that's
He
part
owns
of
it.
what makes him great. He would not be
Right.
better if he could do. I mean, how many times have you heard opera people try to sing pop, and it's like a nightmare.
Oh yeah, like that American Idol notes per minute thing where it's like, oh, enough. We
Yeah.
get it.
Yeah. So, but a lot of what makes people good is if they learn how to craft something out of whatever they're capable of doing, and that includes their limitations, what they can't do.
I mean, that's kind
I
of
can't
like what
remember what
Shy's
the point
about
was,
on the Mid-Mile record, the last one that came
yeah,
out,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
So
Don't be too precious about your voice. Yeah, just let it go. And we certainly let it go on these records. The vocals were almost an afterthought. A little less so by this point, but and really, I think by Libertine we gotten at least fairly conscious of like trying to maybe do a couple takes of the vocals rather than just like kind of farting them out and letting them go. But
letting your freak flag fly.
yeah, right. Yeah.
The Lure of Beauty.
Yeah, so this song is just a straight up Rolling Stones thing. It's even Keith Richards tuning. I played it. I had a Dan Armstrong guitar like Keith used to play, and I had it. It was I had it 5 string. It was tuned to G, the open G, and
Nice.
I brought it just for the song, and I played the main guitar thing on it, because I got into playing open G for a while because it's fun. That's why Keith has been doing it for so long.
Turns out this Keith guy's onto something.
That song's also like kind of a really mean kiss off song, and I guess it probably had to do with Joel. I don't know, but it's not very nice. There's a lot of animosity in it, and it's an anomaly. I think it sounds kind of neat. It's again me kind of shoehorning the band into something that isn't naturally what we would end up doing. Michael really makes it work. There's no bass on the song, and he provides the whole propulsion with the kick drum on that, and that's just him being a great drummer, making the tune work. We did not play that one live. Maybe we did a few times, but of all the songs on this record, besides Miracle Mile, which is acoustic, that one got played the least live for sure. Maybe we played it a couple times.
That song's also a delivery system for using the word shibboleth in a sentence.
Yeah. Some of the lyrics are good.
Yeah.
Some of the lyrics are funny, as I recall. But that's a total like just blah 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 blah, just endless words. Not knowing when to shut up.
Well, and it's like if it had been the Stones, like they would have called it "You Got It All Wrong," right? But you call it "The Lure of Beauty."
Yeah. Oh, "The Lure of Beauty" is from an H.L. Mencken essay in some book, and I was drawn to that title. It wasn't just about Joel; it was about someone else too, kind of. But I don't know. It's sort of an anomaly, and it definitely belongs exactly where it is on the record, which I think is middle of the third side. Yeah, that's where it belongs.
Drift like a dreamboat, shake like a battleship. That's a good line.
Yeah. There's life ain't ever dull when the deepest of the green seas hold your lovely hull. That's pretty good. Some of the lyrics are good on it.
Just really dig into the nautical rock.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't listened to that one for a while. I remember it started to get a little boring by the end, but then Michael kicked it up a notch and he made it good.
Yeah, did you have ever have a moment where on that record where you're like, maybe we should just shorten that up, and then you're like, oh wait, hey, no, that's good the way it is. Is that were these arrangements fluid in any way, or was it all kind of mostly
No,
preordained?
yeah, and we didn't think about that. We just blasted it out, you know. I mean, our aesthetic was really like the Husker Du aesthetic or something, Zen Arcade, New Day Rising thing where they would go in the studio and record for 24 straight hours, and then Spot would mix it somehow, and they would have a record, you know. Only we were fortunate enough to be recording with Steve, so
I was gonna say, I thought you were just you're
we
fortunate
had
enough
had
to
some
not be
bass.
recording with Spot, but that's a much better way to
No,
phrase
I
that.
mean, hey, that dude made a lot of amazing records, so people
I
people
mean,
diss him, but
all,
I don't know.
all
I don't know
respect
what
for
New Day
Days.
Rising would be like if Spot hadn't recorded it. Maybe it would have been
Yeah,
worse. You know, there are a
uh,
lot
uh,
of people who would have fucked that record up. So,
I
but
I agree, but
but you know, we just blasted it out,
yeah,
and yeah, I mean, you're basically just racing to get to the next intro, you know, and that's how we played live, and that's how we recorded it. Um, but there's a line in that song, "Did that hard water break your back? Did a pile of rock and roll do it?" That's pretty good.
yeah.
That's totally about Joel. Hard water being any Motel 6 in the middle of the country.
Oh
You know,
man, yeah.
that water that comes out, it's
Ugh.
like super Texas Motel 6, super minerally, and you can't wash off the soap, and it
I
sucks.
was gonna say it feels like it sticks to you, but it doesn't stick to you at all.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
I wish I'm bummed out. I know what you're talking about. Uh, Next up, the Mighty Miracle Mile.
Yeah, so this song's just about touring, and I wrote it in my head in the van as we were driving home from Chicago to Seattle, I think. And I can't remember if all this stuff had just happened, but it's like a travelogue sort of thing where
Right.
uh, it's just sort of I like it. It captures the kind of gestalt of being a shit-eating indie rock band at that time in particular, and probably now too.
Yeah,
Although I
it hasn't
wouldn't,
changed that much. Yeah.
yeah. Um, and so it's just about that, and it's about we played a show one time at CBGB where we during the day we went to Central Park. It was on July 4th some year, and Sun Ra and Sonic Youth were playing, and I fucking love Sun Ra,
Yeah.
and I probably have as many Sun Ra records as anything else in my life, and I love Sonic Youth. At the time, even then, I don't know why I said even, especially then. I meant. Um, so anyway, they played. Sonic Youth was okay. Sun Ra was amazing, and it was outdoors in Central Park on July 4th. It was great. And then we went to CBGB, and there were like 8 bands, and we were last, which does not mean you're headlining when you go in at 3 in the morning. And the
Hey
voluptuous
kids,
horror of
listen up. I'm going
Karen.
to teach you an important lesson here.
When someone says you're the headliner and there are 8 bands, you're actually the cleanup act.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't mean cleanup like baseball. I mean like janitor. Um, so the voluptuous horror of Karen Black played, and there were probably a couple hundred people there, and then everybody left. And then we played for like 3 people, and the sound man was out of his mind on something. It wasn't alcohol, some kind of pills or coke or something. And we were real loud. Uh, that show was with Joel, so it was 2 guitars, bass, drums. Everything was super loud, and he was just over it. And he was like, "If you guys don't turn down, I'm gonna fucking kill you." He says this over the mic, over the
Wow.
monitors, and we're like, "Yeah, fuck this guy." So we just played our set and got the fuck out of there. But that was one thing that's in there, and I got back at him by being mean to him in the song. And then someone broke into our Suburban at another trip to New York, And the only thing in the Suburban was a sleeping bag, and they took it,
Yeah.
which who can blame them? They probably needed it.
Yeah.
And then there's a bunch of other stuff in that song about whatever travails. But it's pretty straightforward. That song has a really good guitar solo in it. That kind of like wrecks the whole
So
song.
I'm glad you brought it up because yeah, like the way it kind of like barges in like an uninvited guest, but just
Yeah.
like, oh my God, like was it that just is that how it shook out, or did you have the idea of like, hey, we got this acoustic song that's kind of going and doing its thing, and then we're just wham, there you go.
Well, this is one song where we didn't have it planned out. I had the thing, toinka 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 on the guitar, and I did that and sang it. And I think it's just that, and then Andy blows it up in the middle. And we got it done, and I left the space in there, and I was like, I don't know what should happen there, Co, but you just need to like fuck it.
Just
you need
go.
to really destroy it in the middle. He's like, okay. And then he went out and he just did that in like one take, and then you're like, oh, perfect. That's great.
Yeah. It's
I wanted it to sound like the wheels coming off,
Yeah. I mean, well, exactly, because it's such an iconic song moment and solo too. Like the fact that it's like, oh wow, yeah, that's just that song just like breaks in like a bull into a china shop, like like immediately.
Yeah.
Song also wins points for me for calling out very specific tour related repairs needed. That's a very small echelon of songs that have done that.
Yeah, we really did get ripped off by a garage in Fort Lee. The crazy thing about that was that I'm like a real bulldog when stuff like that happens. So I kept at it, and I wrote, this is pre-internet, so I had to write letters to the New Jersey Department of Consumer Affairs and stuff, and they took down that garage wholesale.
Really?
Not because of us, but we were part of the whole thing because there were so many complaints, and we got all of our money back plus damages from it. It was like $800 or something, and we got like $1,500 back. But still, it was very satisfying in the end. But yeah, at the time, it was not fun to do all that stuff.
And then the song also is in a special category of, much like Ferris Bueller's Day Off, where things that would be different with cell phones in that same way. Not for that, for emergency services alone, but also, there's the, I'm old enough to remember touring with having to call someone long distance. Okay, you got to do it at this time. You got to keep it succinct.
Yeah, calling card.
Card, exactly.
Punch in the numbers.
and just being isolated and away, loving what you're doing but away, and then also having all these mundane and sometimes terrible adventures.
Yeah, and like that part at the end of the song, my wife went on a lot of the tours with us, and then she didn't after a while because someone had to like make money to pay the rent and whatnot, so she wouldn't go on all of them. And there are all sorts of misadventures that you get up to on tour that you shouldn't, and stuff, and you just lose touch with the person. And when you're on tour, you just become this kind of like creature comforts are really important, and things that aren't important are really like relating to other people on any kind of a real deep level. Like Pete Townsend used to call it tour armor, where you go on the road, and you just become this like, clad thing that doesn't really, you're not really part of the human race exactly.
Right. Like you hit that like whatever, about 2-week mark, and then suddenly you're out to sea.
Yes, 2 weeks plus. After the 2-week mark, you just go into this like zone, and it's happened in every band I've ever been in that's toured that much. And recently I went on tour with Sun a lot in 2019, and we had a couple long tours, and the same thing happened. I mean, it was great. I love it. I like that feeling. But it's not really conducive to people who aren't in the same headspace you are to be enjoying it.
Yes.
You call them up and it's like, hey, yeah, and you're like, same old dumb jokes that you've been telling for 3 weeks that are still
Right.
funny. The other person's like, what the fuck are you talking about?
I can't decipher what it is you're on about right now. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
no, it's funny because there's a thing. Okay, well,
Well, and you're staying up till 4 in the morning, and
yeah.
you're doing things just people just don't do, really, mostly.
Did you have the idea for how to end it early on, or did it present itself? Because it occurs to me that especially with the subject matter of so much of the record, it's like until I blacked out, thank God.
Yeah, yeah.
Like it's just like
Yeah.
it's like the one time you're like, oh, good, I don't have to deal with this right now. Great.
Yeah, right. No, for sure. I mean that's a real feeling of I mean, I love touring and I love being in a band, but like I said, when you're on the road for weeks on end, and sometimes we're on the road for 5 or 6 weeks straight, which is insane. When you're making
Yeah.
$0, it's not like the Sun tours I went on where it's like, oh, now the last show of the tour is at the Roundhouse in London, and there are going to be 4,000 people there.
Yeah.
It's more like the last show of the tour is at CBGB at 3 in the morning in front of your 5 friends.
Yeah.
And we just beat our brains out, and it's no surprise. I'm surprised it wasn't more debilitating, honestly, but it definitely was debilitating at times.
I think that song,
that's what that song's about for sure. Yeah.
I mean, I think that song does a good job of kind of summing up the whole tour experience, where it's sort of like, there's a little bit of a fuck, why are we doing this? And then there's also like, the grandiose moments of like complete mundane misery and
Yeah.
like it's all like right there. But the fact that it's a little bit, joyous might be the wrong word, but kind of up tempo and
yeah, right. Yeah.
like it's
jaunty.
Yeah, jaunty. There we go. That's a perfect term for it.
Well, there's a whole thing of the imitative fallacy where if you want to convey chaos in art, you don't just make chaos. You do something that's oriented that's bent towards a particular horizon,
right,
that describes that it's informed in some way by chaos, but it's not literally chaos. So a lot of so-called depressing music goes too far, I think, and it's too, like we were talking about The Cure earlier. Like a lot of people like that record Pornography. I think Pornography is super lame because it's performative to me. It's not really there. But the other stuff that he did, that's like the same feeling conveyed with these like sort of voluptuous, really inviting, seductive tunes. I think that's really super duper effective. And this song isn't super inviting necessarily, but I think that if you don't do the poor me thing straight up, and you do it inside of some kind of a construct that's more, has a sense of humor. I mean, the guitar solo is funny,
Well, it's so, it's awesome, but it's also like the way that it comes in is completely absurd, but in a good way, where you're like, what?
Totally.
What?
It's like the wheel
can't do
falling
that.
off your van. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
and it makes it all the cooler because of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then
I think so.
I mean, you did the Marco Collins thing. I think you played that one, if I remember correctly.
We didn't do that one there. No.
Did you not do one? What am I thinking of? Because this isn't one you played. I mean, for obvious reasons, like it's very Spartan, very very bare bones.
Yeah.
Did you have the idea of it being like this is going to be like this is a song for the record? This is the what Bob Dylan, the Hurricane for touring bands. Or is it just like, let's just not think too hard about it? Like, what were you thinking about with Miracle Mile?
I think we were thinking last song on side 3. You don't want to put one of your great ones there, so you got to put something in there. And I wanted it to be on the record straight along because I felt like it was descriptive, and it was a change up. You can't have all fastballs, or all curves. You need to have some change-ups mixed in there. So, yeah.
Drag the River.
Yeah, I don't really know what I was up to. Well, I do sort of. This song is really just informed by, and there's no way you would get it from the lyrics, I don't think necessarily, but Seattle in that era when we lived there was a really fairly dark place, I think, in a lot of ways.
Mm, mm.
Um, I remember when that movie Singles came out, which I think maybe we talked about briefly one time on one of these
I,
shows.
think I seem to recall that we did. Yeah, that's
Well,
it's weird. My memory is so patchy and gets so specific about certain things, but I do remember talking about singles. Yes.
yeah, I think that movie is terrible, and one of the reasons it was so terrible was that
It's not great.
it put what was at heart a fairly dark place and a fairly, I would say, nihilistic scene.
Yeah.
I'm not moralistic about drugs and stuff like that, but I think people can do whatever they want. But it's a pretty dark place, and it was really fueled by excess of drinking and heroin. That's
Yeah.
what it was about. And then there was a lot of death that was kind of went along with that, or was kind of tangentially associated with it, like Mia Zapata from the Gets getting killed by that guy and stuff.
Yeah.
And there was just kind of a weird, and then of course Cobain killing himself, and so there's all this death, and it didn't let up after that. Lane Staley died, and Chris Cornell killed himself, and there's a lot of fucked up shit that happened. So there's this kind of heavy vibe to me in the middle of the whole thing, despite everything, the feeding frenzy and the kind of like mania about how Seattle was this rock mecca. There's
Right.
something really dark about it. And that song is very impressionistic, but that's where it came from. Um, and uh, and there's a bit in there about cops and stuff about how useless they are, which I haven't moved off that to this day because I have no reason to. But
Yeah, a little ahead of the
that was
curve there.
also that was the whole thing with the Mia Zapata thing, or like the Green River
Yeah.
Killer, or whatever. Like, what the fuck? There's all this
Yeah.
fucked up shit happening, and no one seems to care or be tuned into it. So I don't know. That is a really odd song among our songs. I don't know how we came up with it. We didn't play it that much live. I do like it, but it's definitely kind of a one-off, in terms of
What
our oeuvre.
Yeah, and it's kind of it's pretty heavy, but it's also got that it's kind of like
Yeah,
it kind of swings a little. It's sort of like, oh, okay, that's
yeah,
but it
yeah.
doesn't feel like tacked on or
That
unserious. I guess maybe the
that's
word
good.
I'm looking for.
Yeah, I'm trying to do a lot with the lyric, and it's very sort of like would be Dylan Bramble type thing, and I don't know if it's successful or not, but it has a vibe, and I
Maybe
think
this
it's
one
a
should be you're the hurricane.
yeah, yeah. But I also just like this that phrase "drag the river." Like nothing good happens when you have to drag the river.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I think
yeah,
that is a Green River thing. That name, not the band, but
right,
even the
right,
fact
right.
that a band would call themselves Green River, you're kind of like, what the fuck, dudes?
Yeah, that's
Seriously, you're gonna name yourself basically after this phenomenon that costs all these like women their
a
lives,
horrible
and
thing.
you're gonna
Yeah,
call your shitty band, Green River. Give me a fucking break. Um, even then, I was kind of like, even then, in the kind of like uh, celebrity criminal, 90s, 80s, 90s, there was more of a tolerance for this whole true crime thing, like it was exciting
yeah.
or fun or something. And I didn't think there was anything. I thought it sucked, that take on that kind of stuff. So
I mean, even now there are those. A friend called them the murder shows, where it's just
yeah.
criminal forensics and I I call it my first acting jobs, where people are.
What got me off that was reading Peter Sotos, reading his stuff, which I don't read a lot of it because I think Pete is a genius and his writing is amazing, but it makes me sick. Like
Yeah,
I can't really read very
yeah,
much of it.
yeah,
But reading it, you really realize, like, by being into that shit, you're part of an economy that's taking people's misery and turning it into entertainment. And and he's very unflinching about that. And when you realize, oh, that's what I'm doing by reading The Stranger
Yeah.
Beside Me or whatever, or the fucking Song for the Green River Killer or fucking whatever. I mean, there are works of art in that field, but not that many. Most of them are titillate, you know.
Totally, yeah.
Most of them are really just to try to make you feel good about feeling horrified by how terrible this was,
Yeah.
you know. But really, you're getting off on it, you know. So
there is an almost pornographic element to a lot of
it's
it.
totally pornographic. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. That is what it is. And the thing I love about that guy's writing, Pete's writing, is that he knows that, and he doesn't absolve himself from what he gets out of it, you know.
Yeah.
So anyway, that I had that experience by that point in my life, and so I was really just I wasn't into it, you know. And that anyway, that's where that song came out of.
I love the like the economy of motion of the line. You know, they never move too fast, too far, or too soon.
Yeah, cops. Yeah, like bears in the corner of a national park. Yeah,
right. Exactly. That's such a good. That's a good summing up of
yeah. Salt, sugar, water, and grease run through the veins of the local police. Yeah, that's good. Anybody can use that line. NWA could have used it. Bob Dylan could use
it. Exactly. Yeah, it's genre in specific, you know.
Yeah. Whatever else on all these lyrics that are on here, whatever else, that one line is a winner. For sure.
Killing My Ass.
So Killing My Ass got its title from this cab driver we had in New York who was talking about some bullshit. I can't remember what it was. But he was just ranting about the city or whatever. I think it was probably about regulations. Usually cab drivers talk about how unfair the regulations are.
They really do like talking about that, don't they?
Yeah,
I've noticed
which
that.
They are. They are probably. But the guy was like, da, 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 and I'm out here killing my ass every day for blah, 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 blah. And Andy and I just looked at each other like, killing my ass. It's amazing. So that's where the title came from.
That's good.
Yeah. And I think this song is sort of, it's good, but it's sort of an excuse for a guitar solo for me.
Guitar solo delivery system.
Yes, it's a guitar solo delivery system. Yeah, and we would play that song quite a bit, and sometimes for a long time. We would play it. We would play it for many minutes, and Andy would just rage.
Go. Yeah.
I
mean,
served its purpose.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, if you have a beast, you what's the point of having a beast if you don't unleash him once in a while? You know?
Yeah. Well, he was unleashed a lot during.
I was gonna say you did a lot of unleashing.
Mm-hmm.
I like the "You're So Sad and Lonely," such a sad-eyed pony. I think that's a good that's a good evocative image. Like, good turnaround there.
Is it pony or phony? I can't remember.
Is it phony? Maybe it's phony.
Maybe it's phony. Maybe it's both.
Maybe I've been mishearing it wrong for 25 years. Who knows?
It might as well be pony if it's not.
Yeah. So this is well, and there's good. Anchor the News, last chance. Like, it's a chance to make everyone else lose. That's a good. That's a good.
Yeah.
That's a good bad vibes sort of moment.
Yeah. Andy had the best bad vibes. Just sort of generic, not generic, generalized, misanthropic bad vibes. I tended to have more like personalized bad vibes. But his were just kind of like anti-human, bad vibes.
Well, and what I always appreciate about you guys, whenever I'd see you play, like whether it was Bottom of the Hill or something, like small stage, or whether it was somewhere like way bigger, like there was always the same kind of triangle. Like you guys were like locked right in with everything you were doing, and it's, again, I always use you guys well, first of all, as an example of how the baritone guitar could be cool, but also as an example of like a power trio, like doing like, you know,
Mhm.
this is how you do this. This is how you lean into each other's strengths to kind of make something better than the sum of its parts.
Yeah.
And wasn't necessarily like playing, you know, 1,000 notes per minute
No.
or going for it all the time. Like everybody got, you know, was a utility player in their own way and kind of
Yeah.
filled the blank spots, you
Yeah.
know, and not necessarily with noise or whatever. And it's, you know, I guess this isn't a question so much as an observation, but I think it's just something that, again, thinking about the fact that, you know, going down from being a 4-piece to being a 3-piece and exploring that, you know, it's not easy to kind of recreate yourself in that way.
Yeah. Right.
Did
Yeah.
it, was it like something that, or was it? Maybe it was. I don't know. What do I know from?
I think it was because we had a such a long period of kind of tugging in the loose ends in a way that where we could fit everything in. You know, like having a guitar player like Andy and a guitar player like Joel both going at the same time. There's a lot of orchestration that happens, like not through talking about it or writing anything down, just listening to each other. And it's like, um, you know, if you listen to the way Ornette Coleman's bands play together, there's these famous records he made with this trio of David Eisenson and I think Chernet Moffett and uh, and Ornette. Those records are a lot different than like the primetime records, which is like an 8-piece band with fucking tabla player and all this other
Yeah,
shit,
yeah,
and 2 bass players or whatever, you
yeah.
know.
And all this other shit. Exactly. That's the
Yeah,
perfect way to describe
I
that.
mean, it's great.
It's great,
I'm
but
not
yeah.
dissing the tabla player, but but you know, like jamming all that stuff in, there's a lot more intense kind of listening and collaboration and trying to figure out who plays where and all that stuff, just with your ears, like figuring it out. But when you have 3 people in the band and everyone has their own space, you know where you overlap instinctively, and it's more freeform, you know, naturally. And
I mean, yeah, yeah. Like
so
I just think
it's a little bit of a liberation, you know, to enter into that kind of a space.
I just think about like, you know, Andy going, just going, and then
Yeah.
like stops, and then Mike seems like Michael's like, oh wait, okay, we're still going. Okay, let's go back. You know, just
Mhm.
like things like that, which is it kills, but it's the kind of thing that if you guys weren't being so thoughtful towards everyone else's actions, I don't know necessarily if it would be able to land. And it's
Yeah. You just have to listen. And we had played together for uh intensively for 5 or 6 years when that record came out. That's a long time. And when I say intensively, I mean 4 or 5 times a week. And you know, everyone in the band, Andy and I have been playing together since '85. So we've been playing for 10 years. And then Michael, you know, Michael was in the band because he slotted right into everything that we did and we heard things the same way. So we just listened to each other and just, you know, knew what to do. There wasn't a lot of there were no arguments that I remember, you know,
yeah,
about what should we do here. And it wasn't because nobody cared. It was because we were all on the same wavelength.
yeah,
You know, man, that's what it's all about. And any good band that's a small band like that operates that way, I think, as a triangle. You know, every point of the triangle is important. That's how the Who operates. That's how the Minutemen operated. That's how we tried to do it. We didn't want to be that you're the backing guy for this guy or whatever. You
right. You're over here thinking about your laundry, playing your bass line, you know.
know? Yeah, yeah, thumping it out. Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Caricature of a joke.
I like this song when I wrote it, and I think Andy was really enthusiastic about the song, which just surprised me because it doesn't have a ripping guitar solo in it. But when he wrote it, I remember him saying at one point, like, "This is the kind of music I want to play. I want to play this kind of music," and it's a pretty plain song, uh, but there's a it's not as good as Swings, I don't think, but it's got a similar core to it of just like pure. There's a very pure kind of emotional thing, and there's something kind of old about the lyric. Like
Yeah.
it's not worked, and and I like that about it, and I like the sentiment behind it is really. It's a sad song, but it's a pretty uh, realistic song as well. And it was also, written in the wake of Joel leaving the band, I think, and stuff. So it's got a lot of that in there. Uh, it came and stole my friend and left a caricature of a joke.
Yeah.
That's a pretty mean thing to say about somebody. But I was watching CNBC the other night, and this guy Hakeem Jeffries, who's a representative from New York, he used the phrase "character of a joke" on MSNBC,
Really?
and I was like, "Did he say what I think he said?" And my wife's like, "Yeah," and I was like, "Is that a thing? Like, do people say that?" And I Googled it, and nothing came up except us. And I was like, "Is Hakeem Jeffries a Silkworm fan?" And John
That's
Solomon figured
awesome.
it out, and he was like, "Well, he would have been like 25,
Right.
when he could have been at one of those knitting factory shows."
The age tracks, yeah, man.
Yeah, but anyway, that was rad. I was happy to hear. I was happy when that happened.
Yeah, that's a yeah, that's weird but cool. That's a weird but cool kind of moment.
Yeah,
For sure.
I don't
And
think we played that tune a lot live. Um, it was a little tricky to get the balance right because if something was too loud or too in your face, any one element, then it would be kind of out of out of whack. The whole thing was about the ensemble sound of the band on that
yeah,
song. So
it almost seemed like for lack of a better term, like a balancing act, right? Where there's, there's like if anything goes a little bit too one way, the whole McGill is gonna fall down.
yeah, and a lot of these songs that didn't matter if the bass was super loud or the drums were loud or the guitar was like piercing. It didn't really. It just made it different. But that song you could wreck it pretty easily if it wasn't mixed right.
Uh, Rain and Water kind of figure heavily into this
Yeah,
one.
yeah. Most of the record I think has a lot of shit like that. I think that's how we came up with Firewater was we were like, there's a lot of element shit. It's like, not like I mean all music has its own kind of relationship to mythology, and mythology is always about the elements and stuff. And Free has that album Fire and Water. So
Yeah.
which was not lost on us when we picked the album title, I don't think.
Oh, there's yeah. Anytime you can be in the same category as Free, and you can kind of
Yeah.
have that be a thing. That's okay. You're doing all
Even the
right.
bad Free records are amazing. Like the ones
Yeah,
that
they're
don't
still
have good songs on them, doesn't matter. The
yeah.
band is awesome.
It's still worth discussing and still worth being part of the conversation, right? I mean,
Oh yeah. I mean, the band sounds amazing always, 100% of the time.
Yeah. There's the one long pull on the trigger of a loaded gun song.
Yeah.
Obviously,
Yeah.
heavy language. Yeah.
Little over the top there, probably. What does that even mean? A long pull on a trigger?
Yeah, the long pull is kind of, well, to me, long pull is sort of like it's a record about drinking, right? You take a long pull, yeah.
No,
So
that's what it is. Yeah, I shouldn't act like I don't know what it is. Yeah,
yeah. I was gonna say,
it's not literally a gun. It's a long pull on a bottle of something, probably.
Right, yeah. Which kind of comes back to the overarching theme of being about drinking, but also not,
Yeah.
So then that just leaves us with "Don't Make Plans" this Friday.
Yeah, which is an epic song. We played this song right up to the end of the band, so we played it for another 10 or 11 years after this record came out. And we had played it a lot when we got to the point where we recorded it. And it's just a long, depressing song about a guy who's like living in the shit apartment someplace. He's gotten booted out of his house, I think, or something.
Yeah.
And
doesn't seem like things going very well for him.
No, things are going bad. And and it has some great guitar playing in it. Really great drumming. This was another one where we would play it live and just get lost a lot, in a good way. Um, I remember, vividly remember that experience of just kind of being gone and
Yeah.
not knowing what's happening. The best shows are always the ones I think where you start playing, and after 2 or 3 minutes, you kind of fade out mentally, and then at the end of the show's over, and you're kind of like,
What
oh,
happened?
I guess the show's over.
Yeah, exactly.
And like it's one thing to do that in it, like in playing with Sun. That's the way it is every night. I mean, because it's automatic, and
Yeah, yeah.
you're playing,
It's baked
you're
in.
basically playing a 150 note riff, and once you get the riff down, which is not super easy, but once you do that, you just you're just blissed out the whole time, and it's great. But when you're in a band and you're playing these songs with varying tempos and there's all this shit going on, you got to sing. It's a little bit more rare for it to enter into that space. But there's some songs that, whatever reason, the tempo or the key or whatever, the alpha waves would sync up, in your
Yeah.
brain with the tune, and you would just kind of go through the whole thing. And every time, one of the reasons we played it so much is every time we played it, that happened, and it was never a struggle. It just like worked, it's great.
Yeah, it's almost like in its way has almost like Neil Young vibes that way, and
Oh
not that
yeah,
it sounds
totally.
like Neil Young, but in that way of just like, wait, this has been going on for 9 minutes? Like, what?
Yeah, yeah,
Really? No
yeah,
way.
yeah, 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 yeah. And I had a similar relation to even being in the band, hearing that song. When we would start it, I would always feel like, like
Yeah.
when I went to last time I saw Neil play was with Crazy Horse, and they played did they start with Powderfinger? Anyway, first or second song was Powderfinger, and the instant it started, I just started crying.
Yeah. Yeah. Because
I
it
didn't
hits you.
I couldn't control it. It was just like,
Yeah.
"Ah." And I talked to like a bunch of other people who saw him on that tour, and they're like, "Oh yeah, same thing happened to me." Powderfinger started, and I just started crying. Like, I don't know, I just felt like I was at home all of a sudden.
Yeah.
So there were certain tunes that we would play where you would feel that way every time, and there weren't a lot of them, but that was one of them for sure. Yeah.
Well, and it also just occurs to me that, when I think back to that song, and I think of listening to it, and like I think that was the first time I had heard a song like that told from that perspective lyrically.
Yeah.
And of the guy that, like, he's not the hero of the story. Like
No,
he's
I don't even
like,
know if you should like him.
yeah, he might be a bit of a dick, frankly, but
Yeah, he could totally be a dick. There's nothing to make you like him in the song.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Everything's sort of like, well, hold on. It's like the saying of, if you meet one asshole a day, you met an asshole. If you met two assholes a day, you met two assholes. If you met three assholes a day, you might be the asshole.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. He complains a little bit too much, right?
Yeah, it's like just a little over the line. But that said, like, how can you argue with like the Friday night is sacred, it's not time to be wasted, and
Yeah,
then Doom on Call is sort of like, fuck.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
that
yeah,
that just that levels me every time, because it's just like three words where it's like, oh yeah, like,
yeah,
like the Reaper, the Reaper's right there.
yeah. Well, you know that feeling in a kind of a normal person way, like Friday night rolls around and you're like, the weekend, and then at a certain point you remember that in a couple of days you're gonna have to go back to work,
Right.
and
You still got a looming consequence
it's
coming.
only a couple days away.
Yeah, it's not that
you
far.
know and an exaggerated version of that would be at the end of a vacation. You're like, vacation's ending, and I'm gonna have to go back to work in a couple of days. But like, if
Yeah.
you really hate your life, and your one chance at escape is going on a bender that lasts from Friday evening into Sunday morning, and after that it's going to be pretty shitty again, and you're going to recognize how shitty it is.
Yeah, you're
That's
gonna try to grab the gold when you can. Exactly.
yeah, right, right.
Well, and it's I think there's a certain type of artist that will kind of make a big deal of trying to be the troubadour of the masses, or like tell, I'm telling the common people's story and this and that and the other and like whatever. And usually that's so incredibly precious and obnoxious that I can't stand it. But
right.
It occurs to me that like, through this record, through all the record, it goes up, it goes down. Like there's different places that are explored and different types of stories that are told. But even though it's kind of like pretty mean at certain points, like it's also jubilant, and it's just it kind of, it reminds me of drinking, if that makes sense. And it's to me it's like one of the best concept records because of that. Fuck King Crimson.
Well, I think that there's this book I like a lot by this Zen lady named Charlotte Beck called Nothing Special, and it's about how nothing's special. You're not special. Yeah. Nothing that happens to you is special. It's just all part of the fabric of the universe, and there's nothing's really all that noteworthy about anything that happens to any of us. If you get colon cancer, that's not special. It's whatever it is, something great happens to you, you fall in love. Not special.
It's notable, but it's not special. Yeah,
it's notable for you, but it doesn't really mean there's nothing special about it. And this record is really, and I think the Worm in general, and probably just the creative output of me and Andy, it's sum total, is about that in some part, which is that you're not special. Nothing that happens to you is special. There's nothing special about anything, but that doesn't mean it's terrible. That doesn't mean it's boring. It just means that it means it's actually universal. You know what I mean? But I do think what happens a lot in fanfare for the common man type rock music is that there's this attempt to glorify or pump up what is actually mundane. Like I think Springsteen's fine, but he does that all the time.
He's built a career on it. I mean, like even when it rules, he's built a career on it. I mean,
yes, and the reality is, no, there's nothing special about drag racing your car, Thunder Friday night, whatever. Like, strap your legs around my engines. Like, who gives a shit? You're just racing motorcycles or whatever. It doesn't matter. That's why he sells records and we don't, among many other things. But
that's not the only reason, but it is a reason. Yeah.
The reality of life is not that it's mundane. It is meaningful and packed with stuff, but it's not special. Like there's fundamentally that's why things are universal, is because they aren't special. They're generic. They're almost generic. They're shared, and that by definition means they're not special. So I think that this whole record and really a lot of our output is about that, which is not a great way to try to carve out a career if you want to get rich, because people want to feel special. They want to be. We could be royals, or whatever. They want to get into that kind of shit. They want to hear you're a diamond or whatever the fuck, But you're not. You're a bag of water, I don't think Rihanna could make a song called, we're like bags of water and have a platinum hit with it. But it would be the truth as opposed to we shine like diamonds or whatever, because we don't. I don't know. I think it's a record that's rooted in kind of humanity, in our basest and maybe sometimes our best form, mostly our basest form on this record. And I think that's good. I think that makes it timeless. It's not an ephemeral record. I think it'll be around kind of forever, probably. And people who gravitate towards it pick up on that, They know in their heart of hearts, like all you've got is like this little blip of time on the rock, and then that's it. People are going to forget about most of us, all of us, and that's okay. It's not sad. It's just the way it is. But to cope with it, people do all sorts of shit, and that's part of what the record's about, is how you grapple with that.
Yeah.
It's a hard thing to accept.
Tim, this has been great, man. Thanks so much for doing this. This has been awesome.
Yeah, right on. I've enjoyed it.
Did you have any I mean, there's so many moods and songs on the record, and so many songs I love. Did you have any song do you think I should play us out on for the 25th anniversary of Firewater by Silkworm?
Well, my favorites on the whole record are, you already played Nerves.
I mean, I already played everything, so like,
yeah,
like whatever. Like we'll play it without me BSing over it and getting
my
in the way.
favorites are Nerves, Slow Hands, Cannibal. Swings is one of my very favorites. So, really any of those I think would be great. Or Don't Make Plans, but I think you probably just got to that.
Let's do Swings.
Swings.
I think Swings is underrated in the Pantheon. So let's do Swings.
Agreed.
Tim, this has been rad. Dude,
good.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Stay safe and
so far, so good.
All right. All right, brother. There he goes. Tim Midyett. This is Silkworm. Firewater 25. Thanks so much, everybody. Thanks for listening. Protonic Reversal. Radio Nope.
Now I know what it's like to be afraid of you. Yeah, I'm a yo-yo that swings between the old and the new. And I wonder what I said before I realized that you're nothing. At least you're nothing.